The toolbox is where all your main tools that you'll use in the software, basically for selecting objects and changing the design views. So let's go ahead and let's look at a few of these. We have our selection tool, and you use this just to select different items and objects in the software. You just left click in an area and it will select it. You have a lasso select tool. And lasso select tool, how it works is you draw a circle around an object in order to select it. And so using this tool, you click all the way around. You can't cut corners. If you cut corners, like let's say, let me go ahead and select it all the way first, but I'll right click and it selects it because I went all the way around the object. But if I cut a corner, it's not going to select the item. See how that I right clicked it and didn't select it because I cut the corner right there. So when you're using the lasso selection tool, you have to go all the way around without cutting any corners, because it's only going to select objects that fall within that area. So I can come in here and go all the way around this object. Even though I went over part of here, I didn't select the entire basketball, so it still only selected all of the text. So you just have to play around with it to get to know how to use it a little bit better, and there is a lesson that you do that shows you how to use that in video coming up. You have the shape tool, and when you select an object using the shape tool, it brings up the properties section where you can adjust the start point, the end point, and the angles, or the outline. So it is a selection tool, but it takes you right into the edit capabilities for each element. Then we have the slice tool, and the slice tool is a tool that allows you to create a split or to cut an object in half, let's say. So there's a lesson that shows you how to do that as well. Then we have the stitch tool, and as you can see, as the icon shows, it allows you to select a specific stitch and modify it. And when you put your mouse over an element, you can see that it has a little highlighting point, and what that is that it's just highlighting the stitch that you're going to be able to edit. So if I go ahead and I left click and drag, you can see I just took that stitch and edited it, moved it. So it allows you to get in there and really get into the finest editing stitch by stitch. Go ahead and undo those. Then you have your zoom tool, which you can take and use and click and drag in a certain area, and it's going to zoom to that area you just selected. When you're zoomed in like this pan tool comes in really handy if you're wanting to see a little bit more area that's being hidden at the time. If you click on this pan tool, you can click and drag on your screen to bring up the section that you want. And if you, going back to the zoom tool, if you want to get this back to where the design fits entirely in the window, you can just double click on the zoom tool. When you double click on the zoom tool, it takes it to the largest viewable size in your work area. We have the ruler, and the ruler is a very powerful ruler. I believe you'll use this quite often. When you have the ruler selected, right now I'm in inches, so I really want to be in millimeters whenever I measure objects. So I'm going to go to my ruler right here, just right click on it. This is a quick and easy way to change between inches and metric. I'm going to choose metric because I want to measure in millimeters. So when you click and you drag, let's say you want to know how wide this column was in this letter R. I'm going to go ahead and left click and drag, and as you see, to the right of the ruler, it's telling you it's 3.2 millimeters. The other part of this ruler that's so powerful is it says tip, use a satin stitch. So if you were working with, you brought in a graphic and you wanted to know, well, what this basketball, these lines here, should I be using a running stitch or should I be using a satin stitch? Sometimes it's hard just by looking at the design. So what you can do with the ruler is you can come in here and you can say, okay, it is 1.6 millimeters tip, use a satin. So you know that you can use a satin stitch in this area. Now you come in and you view this outer part, and it says 0.7 millimeters, use a run. So this lets you know that you are not going to be able to create a satin stitch that's this thin along the outside. So you'll have a decision to make on if you make that a satin stitch or if you use just a run stitch outline. Personally, I would make that a satin stitch, and I'd make it just as thick as these other lines are. And if we zoom to fit here, you'll click and drag, and you'll notice that it says tip, use a fill. You're just going to be measuring the width of objects, and so it's really nice. So when you're using the ruler, as you left click and you drag, it's going to start out tip, use, run. When you get to a certain point, like right here, it says tip, use satin, and as you keep going, it's going to switch to tip, use a fill. So this will just give you a quick reference guide letting you know what type of stitch you should be using at that point. It's very powerful. You have the load backdrop tool, and that is what I use to bring in this backdrop image. When you click on the load backdrop tool, it's going to bring you to the load backdrop dialog box where you'll be able to navigate on your computer to the location where the JPEG or bitmap image is located so that you can select it and bring it into the design. You have the grid option. If I click on this grid, it's going to bring up the grid in the background. And you do have the ability to adjust the settings of that. Again, if you come up to this ruler, this is the quick and easy way. If you right click on it, you can go to grid settings. When you're in the grid settings, you have the ability to change the grid width horizontally and vertically. And if you right now, because maintain aspect ratio is checked, if I change the top one to 5, it's going to change the bottom one to 5 as well. You can choose to snap to grid, and what that does is if you use that option when you're moving an object, it's going to try to snap right to that corner. So it's helpful when you're trying to line things up and you want something in a specific spot. It'll help to do that. You can show the grid as lines like it is in this case, or you can show them as dots. I'll go ahead and change it to dots and hit OK. You can see then it's showing it in dots. So you have that personal preference there, how you want to set up your grid. I like to use grid as lines, and then you can have it there. If you click the icon again, it'll turn the grid off and on. And you notice that it keeps the last setting that you did. The next icon is your stitches tool. Now this one is very helpful when you're editing designs, and sometimes the view of the stitches can get in the way. I kind of skipped over this 3D icon. When you click on the 3D icon, it shows in a realistic view. If you click off of it, it just shows the lines as stitches. And sometimes it's helpful when you're editing to turn off the 3D view and turn it on. This stitches view, what it will do when you click on it, it's going to hide all the stitches and it's just going to show you the outlines. And so this is very helpful when you're editing a design, when you can come in and you can zoom in, and it gives you the ability to really find the edges a lot easier to do the editing. So it's a very, very helpful tool. Let me go ahead and turn the stitches back on. I'm going to double click on this zoom tool so that it goes back to 100%. Just so you know too, another way to zoom on your mouse wheel, if you click it up, it's going to zoom in. You click back, it's going to zoom out. Okay, let's go to the Stitch Ends tool. Stitch Ends tool, what this does is it shows you everywhere the needle is going to penetrate the fabric. So if I zoom in here, you'll see these little dots everywhere. That represents a needle penetration point. So it allows you to see everywhere that the needle is going to go through the fabric. It can be helpful when you're using the stitch tool as well, so you can come in there and see them as well. The next option is the Commands tool. With the Commands tool, it allows you to see everywhere that there is a trim, and it also allows you to see whenever there's a color change. So the trims are represented by scissors, and then you have this little icon right here that's a needle with a thread running through it. That represents a color change. And there's only, I believe, that one color change in here. So, but it'll show you everywhere that there's a trim that's going to take place or a color change is going to take place. So go ahead and turn that off. Let's see. Then you do have the ability. I'm going to double click on this zoom tool again. You do have the ability to add a hoop. If you click on the hoop, let's say you don't really know, you're wanting to see, well, what kind of size do I need to use for this this design. You can go through and select the one that you have, or just hit suggest. When you hit suggest, it's going to bring up one that's going to fit, that design will fit inside of, and it might not be the one that you one of the hoops that you have, but you can look at the dimensions, 100 by 100 millimeters. So it gives you an idea. So if you know what hoop you have that's closest to that, this size or larger, you can go ahead and pick it. And you can, if you don't find your hoop in this list, you can create your own new one, and it's very simple to do. Just click on the icon, give it the width and height dimensions, select if it's rectangular or round, and then you name it and hit OK. Let's go ahead and click out of this. And if you hit the hoop tool icon again, it will turn that hoop off. And you'll notice that I did put this background image in this design, which I obviously, it's kind of getting in the way here. I don't really want to see that. Whenever you load an image, whenever you want to hide the image, it's this last icon down here on the left. You just click on it, the backdrop tool icon, and it takes it away. You click it again, it brings it back. So you'll want to, sometimes you'll want to be able to hide the backdrop image, and that's how you do so. So those are the different tools that are available on the toolbox. Take some time and play around with the tools. They all function a little bit differently, and all have a time when they're most valuable to you. Like with editing, being able to turn off stitches, or using the shape tool to access the angle lines and entry exit points. There's just a lot of different helpful tools in here, so take time to play around and get to know what each one does.